The possibility of WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange getting extradited to the United States has become more likely as the United States government has won its appeal of a British court's ruling that would have barred that extradition from happening. So Assange is facing espionage charges in the United States in response to his decision to publish leaked classified documents that were provided by Chelsea Manning. A lower court had ruled in January that Assange would be at risk of suicide or other harm if held in American custody, but following reassurances by US authorities that he would be held in the most strict confinement, a judge found that Assange can be extradited on the charges related to his publishing of classified State Department documents. This is terrible news, and it shows the weakness in the British court's ruling on this extradition, because it wasn't about protecting journalism or preventing the United States from pursuing espionage charges against Julian Assange for simply publishing incredibly important information for the world to know about. It was just about, oh, we're worried that he's gonna be harmed in the awful US prison system. And obviously here in this update, all the US government really needed to do was argue, no, don't worry, we'll take care of him, everything will be okay. And apparently that was enough of an argument for the courts to side with the United States. Now, in a statement given after the ruling, Assange's fiance said that the ruling was dangerous and misguided, and that the US assurances about the conditions of Assange's confinement once stateside could not be considered reliable. And I completely agree with her on that, especially when you consider the treatment of Chelsea Manning when she was imprisoned for leaking the information to WikiLeaks. She was held in solitary confinement, tortured. It was awful. And so I don't believe the United States at all when they say, oh, don't worry about it, we'll treat him totally fair, totally fine, he'll be all right. Now, doctors have testified that Assange suffers from severe depression and other mental illnesses triggered by the years he has spent on the run from the US government, and that he would be at grave risk of suicide if extradited to the United States. And yes, I have a lot more details to share with you guys, but Cenk, I wanted you to jump in.
Yeah, so 3 things here to start with. Number 1, the UK should have never agreed to any of this. So look, here's one easy way to tell. If Saudi Arabia said, oh no, that's okay, extradite, by the way, maybe a Washington Post columnist who writes terrible things or tough critique of the Saudi royal prince, extradited him to Saudi Arabia. He violated a law here. He did espionage, which by the way, the Saudi government did actually say. And don't worry, we'll treat him just fine. The UK should not extradite him. That's absurd. And am I comparing America to Saudi Arabia? Yes, I am. First of all, we're the people who let Saudi Arabia do that and had no consequence for them at all. Said, oh, well, they're our beloved allies that make us rich. Donald Trump did that. By the way, Joe Biden hasn't done anything to fix it.
Exactly.
And so, how do I know American government will do terrible things to Assange? Well, this is the Chelsea Manning case. They already did terrible things to Chelsea Manning. They put her in isolation, they stripped her naked, they did different things, including isolation, which are considered torture by international law and by UK law. So UK should, by the way, I don't think the UK should extradite anybody to the United States as long as we keep doing torture like isolation, okay? Solitary confinement is, especially at the great degree that we do it in America, the lengths at which we do it is definitely torture. And so, but on this particular case, we've already proven that we torture people in this case. So it'd be insane to extradite. So if you're a UK citizen, you should be furious at your own government, who apparently hates the press and it can't wait for Assange to get tortured by America. Okay, now, if you're in the American government, well, obviously we know our officials are the worst, right? They already did it to Chelsea Manning. What did Assange do anything in this case? Nothing at all, okay? He did journalism.
Yes.
It's the same thing as the Pentagon Papers, the same thing the New York Times did back during the during Nixon's reign and the Vietnam War, and the New York Times is celebrated because they're mainstream media. When Assange does it, criminal, like espionage, get him, torture him, take out the pitchforks. Look, some of the press has been good in defending Assange, but overall their level of
disdain,
their level of fighting back against particularly Democratic administrations has been terrible. So right now, every question Jen Psaki is getting should be, wait, does the Biden administration respect freedom of the press or don't you? Because if he goes to jail for that, any whistleblower and any journalist that covers a whistleblower can go to jail. So are you going to imprison this entire room? That's an easy and obvious question that should be asked of Jen Psaki, but there aren't very many real reporters in that room, if any. And so no one bothers to ask it. Oh, Democrats, Obama and Biden, when you destroy freedom of the press, it's wonderful because you're a Democrat doing it. On the other hand, by the way, a lot of fake new Assange fans, because they think, oh, he helps Trump, etc. Well, where's Trump? He was in charge for 4 years.
Yeah, let me give some context because that's a good point, and I want to provide context that I think will help people understand that there are government officials who understand the First Amendment ramifications to prosecuting Assange for espionage. Now, first, let's back up for a second, right? Because I mentioned the Chelsea Manning leaks and how WikiLeaks published those leaks. Those were newsworthy leaks, and they embarrassed the United States government and military, which is exactly why the United States is going after Julian Assange. WikiLeaks helped uncover evidence of civilian killings carried out by US troops during the war in Iraq, including shocking video footage of the crew of an Apache helicopter killing Reuters journalists and others during a 2007 attack in Baghdad. So there's a little context for you. Now, during the Obama administration, of course, there was consideration in going after Assange for espionage, but ultimately the Obama administration decided against it, knowing that there were constitutional issues at play. So for instance, Matthew Miller, a former chief spokesperson for the Justice Department under the Obama administration, told Politico that the Obama administration declined to pursue an indictment of Assange out of concern for the press freedom precedent and doubts about whether charges would hold up in court. Now, Obama's administration decided against going after Assange, and then in comes Donald Trump, who decided, no, I'm going full steam ahead, going after Assange. We want to extradite him to the United States. We want to try him for espionage. But Trump's no longer in office. His administration is no longer in power. So the question is, why is Biden continuing on with the awful and dangerous policies and precedents set by the Trump administration? Why would you do that knowing full well that when you were vice president under the Obama administration, they decided against going after Assange because of the fact that it had First Amendment violations involved?
Yeah, well, there's, again, a couple of things there. Number one, Obama is half full of crap. Any one of these administrations could have said Assange did nothing wrong, we will not pursue him, period. End of investigation, end of this entire issue. Obama didn't do that. He did a usual Obama half measure. Okay, by the way, Obama did use the Espionage Act against other great journalists. So Obama generally on this issue was terrible. Don't listen to the mainstream media liars who kiss his ass for a living. Oh, the great Obama. No, he would have put you in prison if you'd actually done your job and did uncovered a story that embarrassed the Obama administration.
I mean, he was notoriously awful when it came to whistleblowers, including whistleblowers like Edward Snowden.
Yes, and by the way, the stuff that Chelsea Manning and Assange uncovered happened during the Bush administration. So that's why Obama goes, well, I'm not going to protect them, but at the same time, I won't use the Espionage Act. But if you did it during my administration, Espionage Act, how dare you embarrass me, okay? That's Obama, keep it real. At the end, he did pardon Chelsea Manning, we should give that context, so he at least did half things right, okay? Trump came and did nothing right, nothing. All those pardons to all those white collar criminals. Oh, you ripped off millions of dollars, billions of dollars. Pardon, pardon. Oh, you're one of these corrupt criminals that was helping Donald Trump. Pardon, pardon. You ripped off Trump's own supporters like Steve Bannon did. Build a fake wall, keep the money instead. Laugh and laugh about how you're using it for yachts. Pardon. Assange, no pardon. No pardon. Do not ever embarrass the government, especially if Trump's in charge. By the way, look, I'll diverge here for an important point. There's a lot of people now pretending to be Assange fans. I'd be super curious to see what they would do if Assange ever leaked something about the Trump government that embarrassed Trump. My guess is all those Assange supporters would instantly go, oh no, he's terrible, he's working with this and that, Russia, Russia, Russia. They'd turn on Assange in a second because they don't actually care about freedom of the press. They're just trying to find ways to support Trump and Republicans, right? So now I've got my own issues with what Assange did later in his career, where he paid bounties for stories, and I don't know if he did selective leaking, but he would say that he has things and not publish them. And I couldn't tell if he was just publishing everything or holding things back for political reasons. But that does not affect this case at all. That's point number one. He did nothing wrong in this case, and yes, people do different things at different times. He might have done something right then and something wrong later. Use your mind, use your judgment, okay? But by the way, anything that Assange might have done where I disagree with it or you disagree with it later in his career, that also shouldn't put anyone in prison. You might disagree with his journalistic ethics, but that has nothing to do with putting him in prison. Hell no. Look, at this point, I think, all right, I don't even want to get into the clowns on the right. Anyways, so back to what should actually happen. What they're gonna do is they're gonna bring him here, and every charge against Assange so far seems to be a complete and utter fabrication. Remember when Sweden was so concerned, and they, of course, what were the charges against him? They were related to sex. If you want to do character assassination, always do it about sex. It worked on Ellie Spitzer, it worked on almost everyone involved. And so Assange was the first thing they said, oh, does sex, oh my God, he did something wrong, and etc. And then when you defend him, oh yeah, of course you're doing it because of the sex crimes, etc. It's a classic character assassination done by the United States government, and yes, oftentimes, and especially in that case, aided and abetted by the mainstream media.
Yep.
Okay, so Trump was horrible on this, Biden is terrible on this. Don't listen to anyone in mainstream media or right-wing media pretending that both sides weren't awful on this issue and just want to protect their own power and destroy freedom of the press. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.